the people who've run all the electricity grids, all of the oil, all of the banks, all of the whatever, it's over for them, because we're basically putting a new template. I know, right? Amazing. It's not going to be an easy ride. It's not going to be a graph that just goes like that. But, you know, it is basically, we are all consciously waking up to the fact that we want to move into a world of service to others, you know, where everything is graceful, easy, abundant, and there's no division based on greed and money and I have and you don't have and all that sort of stuff. So that's where I feel we're going as a collective.
I completely concur and agree with you 100%, and we need as many of us as possible to be manifesting that narrative, because, you know, that is our potential, and I don't actually think that anyone can stop it now. So hallelujah. Amazing.
Yes, 100%.
So as promised, we have Tim Sandars of Omnia Balance YouTube channel live with us. So we're going to talk about some of the topics that have been raised in comments that I talked about in my recent video about the love particle, the Dodecahedron, that obviously has links to the 12 tribes of Israel and the Xenogenesis awakening. So hi Tim, thanks for being here with us.
Hi Kelly, yeah, pleasure to be here.
Since I launched this video, a lot of people have been asking you know, about the 0 point and how exactly it responds to our intent. So I don't know if you could go into that first.
Go straight into the big one. Yeah. Yeah, it's the idea that we are mental beings, you know, and even our bodies are sort of given to us by another form of divine intelligence, right? It's this idea that, you know, as controllers of our body, we're only sort of limited, if that makes sense. I don't know how my fingernails grow; they just grow. Right? There's an operating system in the body. It digests my food. It brings the oxygen into my lungs and distributes that, and all sorts of things. The heart beats, you know, and sends all the blood around the body, and all of this divine intelligence is happening within the body. And so we are mental beings who come in with a mind, who decide what to have for lunch, or, you know, what to watch on TV, what job to have, you know, where to live, who to fall in love with, etc. Right? So we are mental beings that come in and make these decisions, and we can always make decisions through two main dynamics. You know, there might be a few more variations of this, but it basically boils down to whether you're making decisions based on love or based on fear, right? And when the thoughts are based on love, basically all the time, the 0 point in the middle of the atom is listening to what you intend as a mental being. So if you are thinking thoughts of love, harmony, balance, gratitude, all these good things that you know, that you see a lot in the Bible, for example, in terms of, like, you know, good ways of leading your life, then the 0 point is listening, and it tunes into that center of the field. And then you have that real kind of perfect balance within the atomic field, within the atom, within the wave field of the atom. And if you're thinking negative thoughts, imbalanced thoughts, things about greed, oppression, you know, violence, you know, things like that aren't in harmony with the Creator's laws, then that 0 point will move away from the center of that atomic field, that wave field. So is that a good answer? I mean, there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's just really interesting, because I think, you know, there's so many guises that this, you know, phenomenon goes under. You know, if you ask a Christian, they'll, you know, swear by the power of prayer. If you know, ask a Buddhist monk, they'll swear by the power of meditation. You know, so it's just, for me, like, I always like to try and highlight the parallels between, you know, these different paradigms, and really just, you know, draw that parallel to highlight the fact that, you know, we're all one, and no matter what our cultural beliefs are, you know, these natural laws are completely present and completely like abiding in every single one of us. There's no exception to that rule.
There can't be, you know, there's only, so if you imagine that the wave field of the atom is like a circle, and you might have the 0 point in the middle, and you could be thinking bad thoughts and it could move away from the middle or whatever. The idea is that 0 point can never move outside the circle, because the creator he's set the kind of the parameters for everything, right? So our you know, our bodies, for example, not many people have 6 legs, right? I'm not saying it never happened, but the point is there's this divine intelligence where there are parameters within everything, right? In sacred geometry and all sorts of other things, in terms of the way nature grows, from, you know, seeds to plants to, you know, to then decay, and then the cycle of nature and everything else. And within this, I mean, the inventor that I've partnered with and who invented my product is someone I've learned a lot from, and you'll be hearing his name quite a lot, I think, which is Dr. Ilya Lakisevich, who I call Laki. But ultimately, he's taught me that you know, once we learn how an atom behaves, we understand how everything in the universe behaves. Those rules that govern the atom therefore govern our own bodies, therefore govern anything from this table, this wall, you know, everything is spinning electrical current in motion. And every atom has that 0 point in the middle, which is keeping that electrical light ring in shape. So the idea is that every single thing in the material universe, but also in the etheric universe, or the immaterial, invisible universe, and I'm sure we're going to talk about things like radiation wave fields, which you can't see, they also follow the same rules. And the most powerful force in this, what he calls the holographic universe, because everything is just making itself and then discharging itself in rapid succession. Our bodies are doing it, you know, this wall is doing it, etc. It's making itself and then discharging itself in rapid succession, living, dying, living, dying, living, dying. So in this reality, you know, the strongest force is human desire. You know, human desire is an incredibly strong force. You know, it's much more capable than any of the other animal kingdom, and we can use it to build bridges or write amazing songs, or, you know, pray, like you said earlier. And if we pray, then we get into, you know, that manifestation. And like we said earlier, the 0 point is always listening to our intentions and the vibration of what it carries, right? Which is why prayer works in Japanese just as well as it does in English, right? Because ultimately it's the vibration behind the language that the field is listening to. So it's that intent that comes through in any language.
Because I have to apologize to Mr. Lakisevich, because I did say his name incorrectly many times in my video. I had make a very kind comment to tell me how I should be pronouncing it. So yeah, sorry about that. But good intentions.
Why he calls himself Lucky, so that people can't.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm just going to start saying now. But I wanted to make sure that he got the credit that he deserved by using his full name. But
definitely deserves it. Yeah.
He makes a really interesting point about the Coulomb Law, which states that opposites attract and likes repel, which is not true to natural law. So obviously in the Hermetics, that's not true either. So I think that's been a big talking point over the years of, you know, is it true that like attracts like, or opposites attract? So can you just explain why that is the case, why, you know, opposites don't actually attract in physics.
Well, yeah, I can do that, but I'm not the sort of physics boffin. I can tell you why he thinks in that way, and that's what's been interesting to me. It's because his research has shown him that all scientific concepts, as they're written down in our textbooks, are all an inversion of the truth. They're all the truth flipped upside down, if you like. Why that happens, we've both got our opinions on that, which is that, you know, it's serving another good other than our own best interests. Things like big pharma and stuff like that. But I don't want to get too much into that. But ultimately, when he went on a quest to find out all of the real true concepts in science, from the atom to gravity to electrical current, all sorts of things, he found that all of the old tenets of physics were actually an inversion of the truth. They were the wrong way round. So opposites oppose each other. They don't attract each other. And, you know, there's you'd have to read his papers to find out more about, you know, what he's done in terms of experimentation to prove that. But ultimately,
on that note, I really do encourage the viewers to watch your interviews with him on your channel, because, I mean, if you just put the science aside, just to listen to him as a spiritual being and the way he speaks, and, you know, continuously confesses the I am that I am, is just such a beautiful, you know, he's just such a divine being and so in touch with spirit. Like, it's just so obvious, and he's just got such an amazing energy and aura about him. So I really encourage.
Well, very similarly to very similarly to Tesla, he does a lot of his inventions and designing and downloading of information through his meditations, through the spirit realm, and for that reason, he's able to channel the truths and then understand how to, you know, bring them to manifestation, demonstration, and so on. What I like about his scientific approach is that it makes everything very simple. You know, physics is it can basically become a kind of theory based on a model, with an assumption, and then and rolled up into something that has a lot of dependent links, which, you know, are only guesswork, right? Whereas he comes in and just says, actually, everything's very simple and it behaves in this way. This is the way it happens. And when you boil it down to that, it is really interesting to do away with the model of the atom, which is the proton, neutron, electron, nucleus, and whatever, and look at everything as this spinning ring of light, and understand that in this universe, everything is made of these spinning rings of light, these spinning rings of current. And once you understand that, then it gives us a lot of freedom to have a look at our bodies and understand how we can heal ourselves, understand our relationship with the 0 point, and also understand that 0 point is the intelligent field. You know, so if you imagine the connected 0 points in every single atom around us, including my body, including your body, including this house, etc., every single 0 point at the heart of every atom is effectively the creator field. It's creating the atom. The atom is the spinning ring of current is going into the magnetic still point to pull out the energy to make itself, right? So that is the creator field. That is the God field. That is the field of all life. It's basically that is the ether. You know, the ether, the creative field, all of these names that we want to give it. Ultimately, what we're saying is that, you know, the God field is inside us. You know, the God field is part of us. And we have the God field to thank for this body, this life, you know. And as I said before, as mental beings, we come in here and, you know, we have an experience, you know, we have an experience that our souls want to have, you know, whether they want to have children or, you know, be a, you know, politician or a sportsman or a, you know, whatever it is, adventurer, you know, musician, etc. You know, all these amazing talents that human beings can have. Our souls come in, but they also can decide to have a really tough time. You know, they can decide to have a, you know, poverty and, you know, and abuse and things like that, in order to for the soul to have that, you know, enriching experience. Because as you well know, life isn't always a bed of roses. You know, it's we come in here with a specific soul contract to learn things in our lifetime, and they could be good or they could be not so good, right?
Yeah, and obviously, you know, it is finding the good in the bad, so to speak, which is, you know, what inevitably brings us through that particular challenge. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that you will keep being given the same test until, you know, you really sort of evolve to rise above it or to learn from it and figure out, you know, actually how to, you know, kind of triumph over it. You know, I used to see patterns in my younger life, and I know so many people that feel the same. It's nice to know that these topics are just becoming so much more popular and so much more common, like, you know, knowledge. And
everything in life is all about whatever happens, whether it, you know, let's say you were abused as a child or something like that, something horrible. You know, it's about allowing that to have happened, and then bringing all of the feelings and the, you know, the you know, the emotions and everything else that come up as a result of that, bringing them back to that center, you know, because that's our challenge, to be able to rise above everything that might happen to us, good and bad, but also bring it back to center, whether that be through forgiveness, you know, blessing people, gratitude, that sort of thing. That's our power as mental beings, is that we can, of course, we're all programmed to react in certain ways. The ego comes in and gets upset, gets triggered, and all those things. But ultimately, the soul and the higher path is to recognize things for what they are, and then bring that 0 point back to the middle of the field and back to love, basically.
Definitely, because
I don't think that I'm the best at it, because I'm
well, none of us are. You know, it's a learning curve, isn't it? Sometimes, like, we have good days and bad days.
Exactly. We're only human.
Definitely. Yeah. I just think it's that carnal mind, you know, that sort of lower intellect. It can be so loud at times that, you know, it's very easy to forget, you know, actually, you know, the vibration that we're truly on and deep in our spirit, which is, yeah, it's just something important to remember, I guess.
Yeah.
But talk a bit about the dodecahedron and the 12 gates or doors, or how.
Yeah, I mean, the dodecahedron is a very powerful geometric shape. It houses all of the platonic solids, so, you know, you can fit all of those within the dodecahedron shape. And you know, that's well known amongst the physics community. You know, that's pretty indisputable. It's a powerful structure. You know, the 12 sides is important. You know, that you may understand a little bit from sort of Vedic mathematics that the 3, the 6, and the 9 are the key, you know, numbers, and obviously 12 is 1 and 2. It's the sort of derivation of 3. But yeah, you allude very nicely to the fact that there's lots of 12 repetitions. 12 is a powerful number. You know, it's 12 months in a year, 12 disciples. You know, you could go on and on. 12, you know, it's a dozen. You know, that we count things in 12s a lot of the time. And there's there's reason for that, which is that there's divine intelligence always reappearing in certain numbers. So what I know about the dodecahedron is that there's a lot of people looking into it as an energy structure, right? Because it has that power. But what Dr. Lacky has found is that there is a new unit of energy that's come through into our atmosphere from almost like the higher dimensions into our realm, and it's just dropping down with
and
the rain.
That's through certain stellar planetary alignments, right? That has been able to happen throughout the years. Is that right?
Well, it's like it's kind of a gift from it's a gift from, if you like, the universe, right? So I think I don't want to get the dates wrong, but it was September 2007. It's been starting to come into our atmosphere, and it's coinciding with this sort of new age, right? Which is a term that I don't like very much, but it is. We are in a new age or era of Aquarius, whereas the old age, the era of Pisces, which was known
I get accused of being a new ager all the time, and to be honest, I don't fully understand what one is, so I'm like,
no. I don't either. It's like
a lot of what I talk about is so ancient. It's like, how can I possibly be a new ager? Okay.
People are just always looking for labels, right? And and whatever sticks or whatever their imagination can throw at you, they try and make that stick. Yeah. So the age is the age of Aquarius. It's a return to the feminine, right? It's a return to the nurturing, the giving some love back to the planet, right? And the last era was the era of, ego, division, male dominance, wars, all of this stuff, which was an experience, right? It was an experience that that human beings, wanted to go through. Like I said, again, to have that sort of extreme of experience, so we can bring it back to an understanding that actually that is not necessary anymore, right? We can turn everything back to, the ways that were intended. And then once we do that, we actually can go many steps further than that and open up our experience to many other things. When we're not sort of preoccupied with all those egoic things, we can actually surrender into a much more, enjoyable life. And there's lots of talk at the moment about, DNA activations and humans reaching their full potential. This is the time that this is all going to happen, not without, some chaos and some viruses and maybe some falls of markets and potentially governments as well. But this is the time.
New gold-backed currencies, 6G, 7G.
You name it.
Beautiful time to be alive, right?
It's a big cauldron at the moment of all sorts of things, and through that must understand and tune into what is in not our best interests, but the collective's best interests, which includes the planet, which includes Mother Earth, Gaia, however you wish to refer to her as. We've got to get back into a mentality where we're working with the land, working with the mother, rather than just plundering her for everything.
Absolutely.
Etc. And just, to bring it all back to the dodecahedron or the deca, the difference between a classic dodecahedron and what Dr. Lacky has uncovered and found and discovered through his extremely psychic and clairvoyant senses. He's found that this dodecahedron has 12 cones of spinning light within it, right? So if you imagine that maybe you can insert a photo of this, but ultimately, if you can imagine that each of the 12 sides has a cone with the large side at the edge going into the middle where it's a pinpoint, then that light gets passed from one side of the dodecahedron to another, from one side of the cone to another. So that light is just literally bouncing back and forth across the structure, and there's 6 pairs of these spirals passing light across it. So you've got a never-ending field of energy, or unit of energy, which is basically just alive with energy all the time. And the key thing about this unit of energy is that this unit of energy will be programmed by human intent. So we can actually, he goes into the hills, he captures them, magnetizes them. So he sets out all these magnets and they jump in, and he basically takes them back to his lab, and then he can use them to actually produce new alternatives to electricity. So I hope that soon there'll be many, many people doing this, because this is our gift, cosmic gift, if you could call it that, that we are now allowed to go out and play with and think of new solutions for turning light bulbs on, or driving cars, or whatever it is.
Brings us nicely to something that a lot of the members on my website have been discussing about moving on from the electrical grid as we know it, and the whole like price tag energy system. So we're sort of going to actually end up transcending that, and moving into a much more abundant time, which coincides again with the awakening and with the things that are going on behind the scenes of this lockdown. So you could give us some thoughts on that.
We have to, because the old systems of the age of Pisces no longer serve us. When we talk about an electricity grid, all these words are very loaded with meaning, and grid is always like sort of slightly sort of prison-like,
Yeah.
But we've also got a system where it's like generation, extraction, payment, right? So you generate the electricity, you extract it, it's gone, and we pay. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And that is effectively a slave system. It's a system based on greed of the people who built the electricity grid. You want your electricity, you come and get it off me, you can't get it from anyone else. And every time you use it, you pay for it. And back in the day when Tesla was looking to introduce free electricity to everyone, he picked the wrong sponsor in JP Morgan to try and get funding for that. And ultimately JP Morgan shut him down, ostracized him from the scientific community, stole all his ideas, and looked for champions of that sort of slave grid, if you like. So that's over now. It's like that is the old way of doing it. We've got to really forward think and own the future, and prescribe the solutions that we want. And I know a lot of this is just wistful stuff from me because it hasn't happened yet. But what I really like about Lackey is that he's got a vision for a future without any cables, without any plugs, where all energy is activated by our conscious human intent, the most powerful force in the hologram. And we basically can ask energy to be our servant. We can ask it to do what we want it to do. But here's the thing, and this is really cool, I love this, because the unit of energy in the Deca is so perfectly balanced with the 12 cones of light, you can't tell it to do anything that's imbalanced, right?
Yeah, I love that. It can't work like if it's not a benevolent act, right? So the intent
exactly
to be good, which is, that's just, I mean,
it won't fire a rocket, right? It won't fire a missile. It won't, do these things that are not in alignment with the creator's vision.
The real love, yeah.
That's
just wonderful. I absolutely love that.
No, I know that he's working on an air conditioning unit, or had been working on an air conditioning unit that doesn't require electricity, and that could be huge. Like having just something almost like a cup that you just put on a table with no wires and nothing, and you put that on the table and it maintains 18 degrees in the room. Well, that solves an almighty amount of problems, and also proves that the Deca is doing what it's here to do. So that might be one of the next things. But he's also bringing out a book, which is all about what he knows about the dodecahedron. So that'll be exciting too. And then, hopefully there'll be some kind of online school that we can all start to learn from him about, what the new era looks like and how we can start developing this ourselves. And I'm sure that, very much like young kids these days are coming through and just instantly being able to sing like an opera singer at the age of 12, I'm sure that there's going to be loads of young kids that just know it already. They're here to do this work. They're just going to come through and go, oh yeah, okay, that reminds me, yeah, of course, that's why I'm here. I'll just go off and build something, a bike that
yeah,
bike that cycles itself or something like that, and they'll just come in and do it. But so far as I know, he's the only person that's working with this unit of energy, and to me it seems really,
to me, I know there's always going to be doubters no matter what, but the 3 tests that you show on your channel, balance, it's those tests are incredible. You've got the blood, the water, and the kinesiology. I know there was a lot of comments in my membership forum that were a little bit more doubtful about the kinesiology. So if you could shed a little light on what kinesiology exactly is and how that works, because those test results are just so tangible. It's magnificent to see.
Well, thank you. First of all, just rewinding a little bit, I have a product, and we might as well just very quickly show what the product is. It looks like this, which is a little sticker. You peel off the sticker and you put it on the back of your mobile phone or something like that. I don't even know if you can see that properly, but basically it looks like that. And then that meets the radiation field, and it brings the radiation field to a centeredness and a balance that will not harm the human body. And that sticker has Deca inside it, right? So the Deca actually exists within that sticker with a program. He's devised the program to set the radiation field back to balance. So that is what the sticker does. And then, of course, we then need to test that it's working, right? But we don't test on the radiation field. We test on the human body, because we know that the human body reacts in a certain way to mobile phones. And it's not just mobile phones. It's all electronic devices that we use, wireless devices that we use. This laptop, Wi-Fi routers are emitting a massive amount of radio frequency. Everything that's wireless, that's radiating, is radiating with an imbalanced field, which means that the 0 point is never settling in the middle, right? And what we need to do is set that straight back to the middle so that it's like perfectly balanced, and then it resonates with the balanced electrical spin of the cells of the human body, right? So we're looking to find a way to make that radiation resonant with the human body, very much like the sun's rays are resonant with the human body. But of course, the sun's very hot, so people like me can get sunburned, right? Yeah. But I don't want to get too much into the distraction things. The point is that very low level radiation fields or radiation fields with very low frequency, shall we say, were not known to harm anyone before, like the last sort of 10 years of research or 15 years of research suddenly went, wait a minute, we're doing all these tests on rats, and the rats are showing up with endocrine damage and DNA strand breaks and all of these illnesses, and cognitive stuff as well, memory loss, infertility, cancers, and these poor rats in a laboratory have been subjected to all of this radiation, and they were like, wait a minute, we don't understand why rats are showing up with all these illnesses. Not immediately, over like 1 or 2 years. And remember, 1 year is something like 16, one rat year is something like 16 human years, right? So if a rat is showing something up after 1 year, it means that in a human, if we use these things for 16 years, then we're going to develop these things, because this is the way it works. And so the physics community didn't understand what it was in these low frequency radiation fields which was causing harm, because it wasn't heat. It wasn't causing enough heat to cause harm to the rats. And of course, we know what it is. It's basically the uncenteredness of that 0 point in the middle of the
Yeah.
field, which then, you know, if you imagine that a radiation field is like sort of jagging around like that, and a cell in the human body is like perfectly balanced like this, and is in really nice, sort of balance. When this comes along, then because of the resonant effect, because we are electrical beings and we respond to everything that we connect with, whether it's sunlight, whether it's, you know, a smell from flowers, whether it's good food that you're eating, whether it's a hug, you know, we respond to all of these things, but we respond in the same way. That's a resonant effect, right? Because you're in tune with nature, you're in tune with you know, things that, you know, you're designed to be in tune with. But then when man makes certain things like an electricity grid based on greed and all of these things that are not centered, not balanced, and not in the love principle, when we meet that, there's a dissonant effect. So this is the first time that we've held the electricity grid next to our ears, next to our genitals, in our back pocket, going straight up our rectum, that sort of thing. It's basically producing a bad vibe that gets picked up by all the cells, you know, on an electrical level in our body. So what we must do is meet that radiation field, set it back to balance. And then, like I said earlier, like you mentioned earlier, we do tests on the human body, and we've done 4 so far. And I'll come to the kinesiology last, because you asked about that. The first one is a water structure test, where we irradiate water, and then we put a patch on, and then we irradiate more water. And the second one with our patch on comes out perfect crystalline. That was done by Dr. Emoto's labs, and it basically means that the water is self-organizing itself according to the now harmonious, balanced vibration of that radiation. So it looks like
which that is such a good test to have, like, available for people to visually see, because so many people are familiar, you know, with the Emoto tests, and, you know, how water responds to different vibrations, you know, such as fear and love, like, you know. And I remember specifically the one where you know, the water responded to Imagine, the frequency of Imagine by Lennon, and it was just, you know, this beautiful snowflake geometric form. And, you know, I just think that always, pictures just say 1,000 words, don't they? So yeah, when I watched that test, I was just like, wow, you know, just speaks volumes.
Well, it's consciousness moving, isn't it? I mean, because remember, we are 70 to 90% water. You know, our blood is 90% water, our bones are less, right? That's an obvious thing to say, but that is what we are. We are mostly water. And, you know, just you saying the song name, Imagine, had me going a bit tingly there, right?
Yeah.
That is what we're talking about. That is literally crystalline structure forming in my body with the consciousness of the song Imagine, right? Which is all peace and love. I'm picking that up in my body. And that's what Dr. Emoto is showing in the water as well, because water is conscious too.
And
right?
it has memory, which is, you know, yeah, incredible.
So if your water is recording that, if your water, you hold a radiation field that's perfectly balanced against water, and then you freeze it, and then you take photos of it, and it comes out perfectly crystalline, then that is very good news for your body. And that's what we
are, you know, what is it, 72% water, around there somewhere, our bodies?
Well, that's the average. And then 90, our blood is over 90%. Yeah. So because the blood is the liquid or whatever. But yes, we are largely water, mostly water. So that's one test, the Dr. Emoto test. We also do a live blood analysis where I use my phone for 15 minutes and then all my blood sticks together. And then we put the patch on the phone and do exactly the same test, and the blood goes right back to normal. You know, all of this stuff is available on our website. And then we do a heart rate variability test, which I'm looking to do more of. I've only done one test on that so far, but that was, again, me taking a baseline, seeing what my stress levels are, what my electrical energy levels were. And then I used a phone for 15 minutes. I watched a video and my stress levels went right up and my electrical energy levels went right down. And then I put the patch on the phone, watched another 15 minutes, and it went back to normal. Wow. So we actually reversed those stressful effects in the body just by putting the patch on.
And I feel like really sensitive beings who, you know, observe certain diets, like, you know, are just conscious of their vibration, you know, can actually notice certain things. Because I know for myself, when I sleep with my phone not on flight mode, I hardly dream at all. But when, you know, I remember to switch it off, have it far away from me, whatever, put it on flight mode, you know, I will always go into those very deep sleeps and, you know, have those vivid dreams. So it's just, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, there's a reason for that, which is that when you sleep, your pineal gland, which I know that you're very big on, your pineal gland will secrete melatonin, but only when the pineal gland has decided that it's nighttime and that you're in deep sleep, right? Those are the two conditions. So if you went for a nap during the day, even for an hour, if you went for an hour's sleep during the day, your pineal gland would be looking out to all of the visible forms of light that you can't even see, you know, because we can only see a certain, you know, light spectrum. The pineal gland would be looking out and saying, is it nighttime? If it is, then it secretes the melatonin, which is like a very powerful antioxidant in the brain. And that sweeps up and cleans up all of the blood-brain barrier and just gets it out of your system in the morning. You know, we all know how that happens. But ultimately, if you leave your phone on at night, then the pineal gland is going, hold on, I'm getting confused here. I can see a light, you know, even though it's like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m, it sees the light from your phone, right? So my advice is always turn your phone off at night. You know, turn it off. Get an alarm clock. It's so important to sleep well.
I did notice as well, since putting the Omnia patch on my phone, that on those times, because sometimes when I work late at night, I'll fall asleep while I'm, you know, taking notes on the Bible or like reading or like, you know, writing a new video. So those are the nights when I forget to turn my phone off or put it on or switch it on to flight mode. But I've noticed since putting the patch on there that it totally, you know, negates that radiation from, you know, affecting my pineal. It's almost like, even though my phone's on, my pineal thinks it's off because I still have those deep, like, visions and, you know, dream states, which is just incredible.
Well, that's a lovely testimonial. Thank you. And that is what it does. You know, people have a little bit of trouble, you know, getting their head around the fact that something as simple as a little patch like that could have such a strong effect. But that's what we're proving again and again and again. And the last test that we do is kinesiology, which you mentioned earlier on. Now, you know, kinesiology divides a lot of people. You know, there's lots of people in my family who just, you know, try and say that I'm tricking people. But ultimately, it's a really interesting way of dialing into your body, your operating system. Remember, I said earlier on that there's some other power that's keeping you alive. You know, there's another form of intelligence, another operating system, growing your fingernails, growing your hair, you know, digesting your food, you know, pineal gland secreting melatonin. We don't tell our pineal gland to secrete melatonin overnight, folks. You know, there's divine intelligence in our bodies that is So when we do a kinesiology test, it's almost like we're dialing into that and saying, okay, I want to see how strong I am. So I'm just doing the one that you can do. You pull down on your arm and you resist, right? And then you might put something in this hand and then someone pulls down again. Now, if you're sensitive to it or allergic to it, your body's strength will just be, you know, you will be struggling to keep that arm upright. And the reason I know this is because I'm allergic to milk. And I found that out when I was 12, I think it was 12 or 13. And, you know, I went in to see this tiny little Chinese fella who was doing kinesiology, right? And I just went, yep, bang, yep, bang, yep, bang, yeah, you're not going to move me. And then he put something in my hand and my arm just went like this. And I was like, whoa, you know, and it was so obvious, like with about 5 things. And then the 6th thing was just like, whoa, like this, what's that? And it was milk. I was like, wow, I drink a lot of milk. But, you know, I'd gone in to see him because I was having some trouble with stuff, digestive issues. And he told me, you've got to get off milk because you don't like milk.
One
And I
of
was
my good friends found out she was alert. She had a really bad mercury poisoning, heavy metal poisoning. And she'd been tested for years by different doctors and different consultants and specialists at hospitals all over, you know, the country. And eventually someone said, oh, why don't you go to a kinesiologist? And within 10 minutes, they were like, oh, you've got heavy metal poisoning. You need to, you know, go on a deep detox.
I find it incredibly powerful and accurate as well. I used to live in Asia. And again, you know, all of my health issues seem to be in my gut. Maybe they're in everyone's gut, but ultimately I was having trouble with my gut. And I went in to see a kinesiologist, and he found that I had a specific type of parasite, right? So he basically, you know, he went through all the allergies. I was, you know, nothing major there. Went into the parasites, and it was like, yes. What kind of parasite is it? Is it this one? No. Is it that one? No. Is it? It's this one. But then here's the great part about what he did next. He said, you've got this type of parasite. Does Tim need antibiotics? No. Does Tim need a diet change? No. Does Tim need herbs to kill this off? Yes. I went super strong. Basically, it's not just what you're allergic to and everything else, it's the body's intelligence saying, what does Tim need, right? And then it was like, Tim needs the herbal remedies or whatever. And then it got even, you know, more accurate, if you like. It's like, does Tim need 5? No. Does Tim need 10 per day? No. Does Tim need 12 per day? Stronger. 14 per day, rock solid. Tim needs 14 per day.
And did you actually feel it yourself as you were being tested?
100%. I'm someone who's quite competitive, so I'm like, oh, you won't
yeah.
me, and
prove it.
Well, yeah, and it's, you know, so I'm an advocate of it, but I understand why people look at it and go, nah, you were just pushing harder, or da da da, you know. But I would always say,
asking, you know, how do I hear like the voice of God, or how do I, you know, really tune into my intuition? To me, like, I sort of view kinesiology as a way of like accessing that divine intuition, you know, what your real soul body wants to have and know and tell you, in order, you know, for it to really flourish, like for us to flourish, body, mind and soul, you know.
100%. And here's the bad news for anyone watching, which is that 100% of people fail the muscle test when their mobile phone is in their hand.
Yeah.
Right? 100%, because it is a bunch of very, very powerful, imbalanced energy fields that are conflicting with the balanced energy in your body. So there's a conflict between the two, and your body comes off worse because you are not a robot. You're an organic divine being, right? And when you get something that's man-made, that represents the electricity grid, and you put it that close to your body, you contact it, then there's a reaction. There's an electrical reaction, right? So yeah, that's the first point I wanted to make about that. And the second point I wanted to make is really interesting. All of your thoughts and all of your core beliefs that you have are stored within your body, right? You might know that people go for trauma release therapy and things like that, where you know they can actually dial into the body and actually release old traumas that you're holding on to. You might have heard of things like
sacral therapy.
Yeah, exactly. All of these things are ways of moving energy from your body and just getting rid of them, right? And kinesiology can be used to ask questions about your core beliefs. You know, you could ask questions. I actually seen this before, where people want their business to succeed, so they clear out all of their core concepts about money. And you develop all of these concepts before the age of 7, right? according to what they've researched.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
there's some
believe in that first cycle of 7 being the most fundamental for development.
Yeah. So before the age of 7, you might have developed a belief that, for example, all rich people are greedy or stingy or nasty, or all rich people are have to work hard. You've developed all these beliefs by your extraordinary, when young kids are way more receptive and interactive with the field than we realize.
Absolute sponges.
They're bringing in all of this information. They might see one argument or something or a TV thing or someone going past in a car, and they pick stuff up on a really deep level, and it will be either stuff that they already knew from possible past lives or things in their DNA or whatever it is, because everything has a connection, a heritage, and so on. But they will, we will have these core beliefs. And I've seen people where, they've been asked to say a phrase where they go, all rich people are greedy. And basically they'll go like this, and it'll be like, well, you've got that core belief, so you need to work on that and say that not all rich people are greedy, because that is your block for stopping you from your abundance,
stopping you from actually being able to be a receiver of wealth. It's a poverty mindset. It's a lot of people don't understand that at all.
That
there were definitely some conditionings in my own life that I had to overcome and really begin to understand. Love and money working together are a really powerful force for good. It's when love coincides with a lower vibration like greed or hate or whatever, that or fear, because that you want to hold on and you can't release and you can't be generous. That's when money can become quote unquote evil. It's not the money itself that is evil at all. It's just the vibration that it's being held under by our own intent. But
100%. It's all about intent. I couldn't have said that better. It's not the money that's evil. It's the intention behind it and what you're using it for. If you're using it as service to self, just to make yourself richer and richer and richer, so that you can turn around to other people and go, then not in the love principle, right? If you're making lots of money, helping lots of people, and doing lots of charity work and stuff like that, then you will attract more of that stuff into your life, and that's the way it is. That's the way resonance works. And that's the way that you're talking to the field. You're talking to the field going, I'm so grateful for all this money. Now I'm going to put stuff back into whatever. And the field's going, we like that. Have some more money. That's where, consciousness.
And there's this amazing tool of reflecting it off of the ego into the world with that very simple question of how can I serve, how can I best use my spiritual gifts to serve, just takes that emphasis off the ego and puts it back into that vibration where it really needs to be, the ultimate manifestation, I think.
100%. And we are right. Say again?
A key part of my little learning journey.
Yeah, fantastic. And right now we're right in a crossroads right now where the whole dynasty of service to self, the people who've run all the electricity grids, all of the oil, all of the banks, all of the whatever, it's over for them, because we're basically putting a new I know, right? Amazing. It's not going to be an easy ride. It's not going to be a graph that just goes like that. But it is basically, we are all consciously waking up to the fact that we want to move into a world of service to others, where everything is graceful, easy, abundant, and there's no division based on greed and money and I have and you don't have and all that sort of stuff. So that's where I feel we're going as a collective.
I completely concur and agree with you. 100%. And we need as many of us as possible to be manifesting that narrative, because, you know, that is our potential. And I don't actually think that anyone can stop it now. So hallelujah.
Unstoppable.
Amazing.
Yes, 100%. We are unstoppable.
Shall we leave it on that note?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And just, you know, I just want to sort of say again that if anyone's interested in having a look at the product, then it's called Omnia Radiation Balancer. Yeah, I think you've got a link as well.
I will put all of the links in the description box below this video, as always, guys. And there is also, the information is on my website in the blog that I did for the Dodecahedron video, so you can also find it there. Thank you so much, Tim, for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly.
Cheers.